Hey, what's up, everybody? We're super excited to be back with another episode of Dominate Your City with Local Area Leaders. Today is a special episode because we have the owner of Greenway Health Center. He is a doctor of chiropractic, doctor of pastoral science, and doctor of natural medicine. We got a lot more titles to come with this. Entrepreneur, innovator, and educator, but most of all, he's Laura and I's really good friend, Dr. Greg Barnes. Greg, we appreciate you coming on today.
Of everything you said, I'm most proud of being your guys' friend.
Yeah, we've known him probably for him and his wife for at least 5 years now. What? Yeah, 4 kids and now they're on the way between us, and a lot of good talks and everything. But Greg he's a super good friend and want to share his story about his Greenway Health Center today.
And if you missed any of those titles, they are right next to his name in the screen right there. There's a lot. I think they ran out of space on the Zoom handle, so that's all we can get on that screen, but good stuff.
Yeah, so Dr. Barnes, welcome, and let's jump into, tell us a little bit about yourself, background, family, like what you got going on right now, and then we'll get into your business.
Yeah. Well, I am married and we got 2 kids. My wife Jenny, we've known each other since chiropractic school, actually. So just a wonderful family. Got a 5-year-old daughter Nora, a 3-year-old son Leo, and cool thing is they both just like rocked pedal bikes without training wheels this past weekend. So that's
awesome.
That is something we can plant our flag in the pandemic, that we accomplished something major.
Yeah, it's a milestone. We've seen
it's a big one. Yeah,
I know. So now you got like a couple of weeks before you're on the trails with them and everything too.
we're trying. We're training right now, so nobody gets run over.
I think the bike shops are probably going to take a huge jump in their stocks and stuff with all the kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You touched on real fast on your wife, Jenny. And for those of you watching and watched our videos, Jenny is going to be on with her business as well. She's an entrepreneur. We're interviewing her. So be on the lookout for that video. It'll be coming soon as well.
Yeah. I won't spill the beans then. I won't spill the beans. Yeah. But no, yeah. So we moved here from, we're both from the north, but we both moved here to Raleigh. Actually, it's like 9 years ago this month, which is actually crazy. I think we kind of moved around here on the same time. We didn't know each other back then, but I think we both moved to Triangle fairly close. But anyway, so
same wedding anniversary.
That's right. Yeah. So we were destined to be friends, but, we moved here, and I remember like vividly, like we weren't, in my opinion, like Raleigh didn't necessarily need like another, chiropractic clinic in a way. So, we've always come from the standpoint that, really chiropractic is more than just about, the kind of cliche, like, car accident or getting your neck cracked or back cracked, but really we wanted to bring a health center that really transform people's lives, not only to help them feel better, but really just seeing crazy stuff. And just it's weird because we moved here both not from the north. I didn't know anything about North Carolina. We lived in Atlanta for a while, so we lived in a bubble, even though we were in the South, right? We lived in a bubble in school. So when we first moved here, after like 2 months, we were both like, where in the heck are we? The South, right? Like we didn't know what the South was. And so for a while we were like, oh crap, did we make the wrong move? But then, we met great people like you guys and others, and obviously put our roots down here. And, now we couldn't imagine living anywhere else. So,
yeah. And I want to give a disclaimer for the people that are listening to this already. And Greg's not going to take offense to this, but some people hear chiropractic and they're like, nope, let's go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
This episode is totally different because Dr. Greg is a chiropractor, but he is functional health and medicine. Like we have trusted him with our family and with adjusting our babies right when they were born all the way up to our whole family now and everything. So this is not just chiropractic care. We're talking all around care. We're going to get into that too. So, don't turn it, listen up, open up your ears a little bit and get a lot out of what we're going to be giving you today.
Yeah. I would just say that we're talking about the whole package deal here. And I know we'll get into it a little bit more with some of the details in a second about some of the things that you offer in your business model that's very different from any other person that's involved in chiropractic or running your own clinic. So definitely want to hear more about that in a minute.
So, can you turn that baby monitor off real quick?
Yeah.
So take us back to when you're in college and you decided, all right, I think I'm going to go to chiropractic school. How did you first become familiar with it or know you wanted to go down that path?
Yeah, so I started as a patient actually, and when I first really got linked up with it was when I was younger, in middle school actually, and I hurt my neck playing basketball. And I mean, I remember this like vividly. It was ninth grade. I went up for a rebound. I heard like a weird click, and I'm like, well, that's weird. And next thing you know, I couldn't turn my neck. And after days of just misery, like icing wasn't working, ibuprofen wasn't working, just everything. Finally, my parents were like, well, I guess we'll try chiropractic. And I had literally never heard of it. I literally had not heard of it before. And so, long story short, he adjusted me. I felt better. So I always filed that away as like, oh, that was interesting. That was really cool. And went to the University of Minnesota, and I really was more like on like an MD path. And I remember it was like time to like apply for the MCAT. And I was like, do I really want to do this? And then like something popped back in my head, and it wasn't like a negative. I was like, is this really what I want to do? And it popped in my head like, oh, like what about chiropractic? And so I really did due diligence then and went to my hometown on like a long weekend, and I shadowed a guy that was recommended from some people in my hometown. And like this dude, like, I mean, he literally loved his life. Like he was like just walking in, just like strolling in these rooms, and like, but you know, like a politician, he was like, you know, hugging grandmas and like kissing babies and stuff, and just like loved his life. And I contrast that with, and granted, this might have been a small enough sample size, but I just don't ever remember seeing MDs that I would shadow and follow behave that way.
Yeah.
You know, if anything, they were kind of like just so like, which was good, probably why they're good at what they do. But I'm like, yeah, like I think that's more my style and like what I want to do. And then it kind of just kept snowballing from there. To the finally, I was like, all right, this is what I'm doing, and I'm not looking back. And now that I know what I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I made that decision. For sure. So yeah, it was kind of, you know, it was one of those things where, you know, you say, like, we have a saying in chiropractic, like, you know, you don't choose chiropractic chooses you. And I, you know, now that I've lived it for a while, I'm like, I know that's so true. And, you know, I think also there's the spiritual aspect where you just get, you know, I got really blessed that I got guided for where I really think I was supposed to be.
So, well, actually, a little known fact for people that are watching, I took the MCAT and you were with me during that time.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking like this is like a flashback.
I was trying to figure out what I want to do with my life like 10 years ago. Took it, got a 30. And
I don't
for
even
those of
know
you,
what that
yeah, that was, I think they changed it since then anyway.
Yeah.
Tell us, schooling wise, to be a chiropractor,
Yeah.
how many extra years after college is it, and what do you have to do? What's it similar like to becoming a physician as well?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess 2 letters I'm missing behind my name on here is my Bachelor of Science. So I do have a BS as well. But yeah, so, you know, it's the same as medical school. We don't take the MCAT obviously to get in, but it's a, you know, 4-year degree. And then schooling is pretty much 4 years for most people. They actually smush about 5 academic years into 3.5. So we go year round. So it's 4 quarters a year. So if you kind of nail everything along the way, then you get out in about 3.5, 4 years. And then for me, from there, like I always say, I'm lucky that from right early in school, I got like, again, chosen, if you will, but kind of, or sucked into maybe like the network that I'm now a part of, MaxLiving. And they had clubs on the school on campus, and they did seminars for doctors in Atlanta, and I happened to go to one. And it was, again, one of those things where like when they were up there speaking, the doctors, and like, you know, sharing their passion and their stories, I'm like, all right, that is exactly what I want you know, and how I want to be with certainty and confidence and practice wise. So I really feel like my schooling, you know, began like not really in the classroom. Like, you know, I passed and I did all that, but really for me, it was like in the trenches. Like I remember every weekend I was hanging out in doctors' offices, learning. And, you know, if we're talking like just pure like entrepreneurial, to put that in context, right? Like that's so huge, where it's like, if someone has something that you want right now, like go hang out with them every minute that you have, because I mean, it's just a success principle that's been around forever. That's like, it's going to rub off on you, in some way, shape or form. So I was just lucky that I got, sucked into that in a good way. And then after,
you touched on a good point, not to interrupt, but like you're still
good.
doing that today. You've grown your business and you have, we'll get into the other business that you have as well, but like you're still doing that. The advice that you just gave those people, like you're still rubbing shoulders, you're still going to people where I've done that in your life, and it's helping you get to those levels as well, even faster. So it's a good piece of advice for sure.
Yeah, your passion for what you do is definitely very evident, but I think that, you're also a huge reader, which is something I totally respect. Like you're constantly doing more research and diving into stuff, and it's not just things that are in the niche of chiropractic, but just the business mindset and furthering your knowledge and stuff, which is super
well,
awesome.
and let's face it. Science and research is, we're learning more and more at an exponential rate right now. And so at this point, in many areas, what was true 6 months ago is not true today, or we know more about it. So in some ways, if you're practicing, it could be irrelevant, or there could be a better way, is maybe a better way of saying it, too, with that. So that's why it's fun, it's like, it's just fun. Yeah, it's fun to learn. It's fun to learn.
Absolutely.
So Greenway Health Center, which is off of 540 and 401, you've had it for close to 10 years now, if not.
Yeah, it'll be 9 years in next month. So,
And I tell people, like, statistically, we're real estate agents, and 85% of real estate agents don't make it past year one because they're not successful. They don't know what to do. They're set up to fail. Chiropractors, they're in the same boat, are they not? There's a lot of them out there, and a lot of them fail.
Yeah. I'd say the stats are pretty close to probably the normal small businesses. Really, most don't open up their office like as early as I did. Like usually they work for somebody for 5-10 years. Because there's just a lot about, you learn nothing about running a business in chiropractic school. Zilch. And so, like true story, even though I had a lot of training, like I literally did not know that like you have to pay taxes. Like, so, cause I'd always just gotten a W-2, right? And it just comes out automatically, file at the end of the year. And so
that's a hard lesson when it's your own business.
I got lucky my first year. I had a good accountant, but like all of a sudden, like him, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm like, so, lesson number one or two, another lesson is that, like even if you think you're highly trained in one area, you could be completely ignorant in another. So, that was
tell us about the patients that come to your office. Like, what does your office encompass right now? Because there's a lot of different chiropractors' offices, and yours is definitely one that's a lot different than others as well.
Yeah, we are cradle to the grave, as we say. So baby to my oldest patient is like literally like 89 years old. Our youngest patient is like a couple days old right now.
Yeah.
So, a lot of families, from the concepts that we teach, I'd say for the majority of people, it either clicks or it doesn't. And when it clicks, they're like, well, yeah, that would make sense that we'd want my whole family to do that, which is fun. Cause then it's like, it's like fun when all you guys coming together. Right. And it's just like, I don't know, it creates also a fun energy too. Not just, the obvious aspects of improving health, but like, it's fun when like the whole family comes in together and it's like, I don't know, it's a lot of energy, which is great. So.
Yeah. We like to make it a family affair. We try to. And it's something we learned over the past few years for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and something that I've really appreciated that I don't think a lot of people know, because this is now our third child, seeing how you guys can vary up what you offer based on the needs of the patient. Because there's a lot of things you have to do differently when you're pregnant versus when you're somebody like Jason, who I know gets really intense adjustments.
Yeah.
Much more so than I think I do, even as somebody in maternity. But it is really interesting how like catered you guys are to each individual person.
There's definitely not a one size fits all. And I think, the only example I could give is like, with surgery, like if you didn't know what you were looking at when you were watching a surgeon work, like you would think that they all look relatively the same, right? But obviously every surgery is vastly different. There's various risk factors, there's various potential complications and whatnot. And although what we do is like a million times safer than doing surgery, it's really the same idea, is that if you were to kind of just stand back and watch me in an office through the day, like if you watch me see 150 people in a day, like they would all kind of look relatively similar as far as the adjustments, but what you might not know is the amount of force that we're using, the amount of torque that we're using. And I could really nerd out on it, but that doesn't matter. But the point is there's a lot more that you don't, but just watch and you can't gather. But unless we're, of course, adjusting someone who's pregnant and, like obviously there's some significant, differences that we do for that. But, I don't adjust, Jason like I do Jax, right?
Yeah.
So it's not the same.
I'm more like that, probably like that 80-year-old patient that you have that's comes in there.
I know, seriously. Although, I mean, I can speak to him, like the amount of difference from day one to now that
for sure.
Him. And I know, like myself, I've had my own experience with Jax when I was pregnant with him, where I had a weird kind of like nerve thing that was going on because he was sitting in the wrong spot, and the only relief that I ever had was coming to get adjusted because you guys were able to get him to move.
And it wasn't just one adjustment. It was
no. I mean, consistency is key.
Which that's a question I have for you. What do you think one of the biggest misconceptions is when it comes to chiropractic care? Yeah. Or just the general public?
Well, I mean, there's many, right? And I'll blame my profession for lack of a clear message, truthfully. But yeah, one major one would be like, you only come when it hurts, right? But if that logic were true for everything with your health, well, then you should only go to the dentist when your teeth hurt too, but that's obviously not a good way. I mean, everybody kind of gets it when you put it in a more familiar context, like, oh yeah, well, I don't just brush my teeth when they hurt. I do it for preventative and for maintenance and all those things. Chiropractic is no different. So that's one, is like, I need an adjustment if I hurt, or I don't need one if I don't hurt. So, I mean, I'd say that's the big one, or that, the people that come in and that you're, just because your problem started yesterday doesn't mean that you're like, you started feeling it yesterday, that your problem started yesterday. So, we do a lot of education, and we use x-rays and other, testing to really show and educate our patients. Cause it's not that we think, people walking in are dumb. But it's that I have found that when I've cut corners on educating a patient, they honestly don't get as good of results. The more I just found, the more a person understands what they have going on, how they can participate in getting better. Like if they know, like I just had a conversation tonight there with a cop, and he's like, he literally leans on his gun, like in his holster. And I'm like, well, no wonder why your back is bent that way. And he's like, well, that makes sense now. It's like, so I'm like, well, are you going to keep doing that? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, perfect. Well, there you go. Like you got your money's worth, So anyway, right. So like there's that's probably the biggest one though, is just like, if it hurts, then I get it. I should consider it. Or if I don't, I shouldn't.
And I found that, I'm going to speak as a patient here. When I came in, when I first came to you, it's kind of similar to us. Like we have a client, and I don't want to keep like making these similarities, but the illustration kind of goes side and side. If somebody comes to us to sell their house, we have a listing presentation and we go through a process with them and everything. Well, I come to Greg, he's not just throwing me on the table. Right. He went through a new patient orientation with us. Yeah. The education piece was there, laid out a plan on what it would take for it to work. And then there's, a multitude of other things. So getting to know that patient individually would, put a lot more trust into it, but it doesn't just happen overnight, which is really cool. I think it set you apart from a lot of other chiropractors that I've seen in the past as well.
And even seminars and stuff that have been offered, I think have been extremely valuable, because I think there's things that are playing into chiropractic care that we wouldn't immediately associate, especially not necessarily ignorant, but the person who's not as knowledgeable. So I think that has been a huge part of it as well. Yeah.
So touching on the seminars, tell us a little bit about, like, okay, you have seminars that you have throughout the health center, but also you guys touch on diet, supplements, weight loss. There's other things. Tell us a little bit about some of those.
Yeah, I mean, we're interested in anything and everything that has to do, with your health, not just your neurological system and your spine. So, because again, like, that's why our office is called, Greenway Health Center. And we actually started off as Greenway Chiropractic, but we switched, and I'm like, it's more, the name actually fits more with what we do. Cause, so, I mean, it's kind of one thing is like, if your spine was in great shape, but you live off of Chick-fil-A and McDonald's, I'm like, I'm sorry, you're still going to die earlier. Right. So, or vice versa. Like, I mean, if you eat amazingly and yet you never exercise and you don't, whatever, yada, yada, like there's going to be a limitation for how good it can be. So, we do our very best to hit hit on 5 really key areas with people's health and educate them. Not all of them like we directly like, you know, practice like do, but like we educate people, and it's kind of up for them to then take it to the next level. So yeah, and like when we apply them together, or a patient applies them, I should say, like, you know, results are fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I even get labs taken there, and it goes, you know, I have a medical doctor as well that I see.
Yeah.
But I get my labs taken with you because I can get labs that I can't get other places that you know how to interpret, or that we can put the whole body part of it, and you know, it just helps out. The functional medicine piece is huge, I think, also that you have there. And that's just a big component to it for sure.
Yeah.
And I also think like the purity and stuff of supplements that are offered as well. Like
this
isn't stuff that is going to be knockoff branding by any means. It's stuff that we actually can give our kids and trust that it's not going to harm them more than help them.
Yeah, whenever I'm doing a nutrition consultation and someone brings in the like gallon tub of fish oils that they got from like Costco or whatever, and they're like, well, but this is like the same price as yours, and there's like 5,000% more. And I'm like, well, I can promise you, I can show you my tax returns for my supplement sales. I hardly make any money. I promise you that I am not making that much money off of. There's a reason why my bottle is this big and yours is that big, and they're the same price. And I can tell you it's not because Dr. B is greedy. Okay.
Yeah. I know. That goes back to the education piece, because people don't, you know, most people don't know that.
For sure.
Haven't seen
and
it.
again, I always do it kind of jokingly with them, because I'm not like going to throw them under the bus, because obviously if they were trying to take supplements, they were trying to do what they thought were best, right? So we just, you know, a lot of times for people, it's just kind of like, hey, you're on the right track. We just got to like dial you in, you know, and get you locked in the right channel for sure.
Awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about, you know, you probably love a ton of aspects of your job, but what are what's something that you love like day in, day out that keeps you going?
Yeah, I mean, people for sure. You know, like with the connections are really real for us. I mean, I will say something of like, you know, whatever, like from 3 months ago, and a person will be like, how the heck did you remember that? And it's like, because I freaking listened when you told me, and I care. Right. And so, you know, if I was just, you know, pushing on meat, if you will, right, and like not able to have, honestly, some days I'd rather just go in and just talk to people and let someone else move the bones, you know, like, cause that's really like where, you know, I get fulfilled through that, not so much like the transaction of like doing, I mean, yeah, I need to do that. Right. But I get fulfilled off of the relationships. But I truthfully, like, as time has gone on, also, like, I have really fallen in love with business. Like, I know, you know, you and I, Jason, we talked about this earlier this year, but it's like, man, I love being able to find a way where I can save $40 a month just by switching this company for that company for the same thing. Like, I'm like, I love that. And not just beyond the obvious, like, I mean, more than just things that involve dollars and cents. Like, I love figuring out where we have, you know, a bottleneck in our processes, and like, okay, how can we approach that differently so it's just more efficient? And even if it wouldn't even necessarily be noticed by the patient, it's like under the hood, it's like, how can we make their experience better, even if they don't even know that it was not as good 3 months ago?
Yeah, no, well, it's funny you mentioned that. You're like, because that was my next question. I was going to actually lead you into it.
Okay.
Like, as a business owner, you know, what's one of the biggest things you can tell somebody listening to this, whether they want to open up a chiropractor office or something in the health field, like, what's something that they can do from the start that you've learned from over the past few years? And one of those you just mentioned is systems and processes, for sure.
So I thankfully, I had a system for everything, even when I opened up. Now they're way more refined and they're way more developed than, you know, what they were. But I remember literally the night before we opened up, my wife and I were like, we called them ghost walkthroughs. And like, we literally like pretended like she was the patient, and like, okay, we're going to give this form and that, and then say this. And then like, okay, we walk back, and like, and we literally walked through it. Like, it was like 11 o'clock at night, you know, we're putting IKEA furniture together and like just scrambling to get all that stuff done. And we did a walkthrough like 10 times to simulate, okay, a real person's about to walk through the door tomorrow. We can't mess this up, right? Because we have no income and all this, and we have bills galore. So we gotta nail this. And we didn't nail it, obviously, for everybody, but that's huge.
Which, by
And,
the way, anybody looking, you can't just
yeah,
use keywords.
it's an awesome book.
Traction by Gino Wickman. If you're starting a business and you want systems and processes or how to do it, Traction is an awesome book. We'll put that in the show notes too.
Yep. Yeah, systems and process. I mean, I love that. I mean, we kind of let that slide a little bit. Not that we just didn't train on them or work on improving them for a while. And like, it was like, I just felt gross. And all of a sudden I'm like, man, we got back into it. And we've spent the last 3 weeks in our office training how to answer the phone. Literally, like a person calls in, what do you say? And I have some of my employees have worked for me for 4, 5, or 8 years, right? And we're still training on how can we make that much clearer and better.
That's awesome.
It's fun. It's fun to see that. Yeah.
Still perfecting it. I mean, yeah, they have certain ways and scripts for a reason because they work and they help consumers when they call in and everything too.
Totally.
So,
Yep.
speaking of growth and adding people and having new employees and stuff, you have a couple other folks that work with you that are also chiropractors. What was the decision process and like bringing them in? How does that kind of dynamic work? And do they have any specialties that maybe are different from yours?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Thanks. So, I mean, we're a huge office. I had my sister helping me for a while, which she's a chiropractor as well. And she's amazing. And she moved away though for love and, to get married and whatnot away. So, it kind of left me like, oh my gosh, this is like a lot. And so, I got lucky. And when, a friend of mine asked me if I was hiring, and I'm like, yeah, if it's the right person. Right. And so, that's when I met, this was 3 years ago now, Dr. Vivian Fedorovich, who's from Raleigh, actually. I went to NC State and then went to the same school as me for chiropractic. And I mean, you guys know her, but so she just got a great personality, loves people, and really like she loves kids and loves babies and pregnant moms. She has a passion for that. And I love all that stuff too, but like, she's like on another level for that. And so it was like perfect. And so she's gotten all kinds of extra training in that field specifically. So she's really a prenatal expert. She's a pediatric specialist in relation to chiropractic. And I mean, the stories I could tell, I mean, I'll name super couple quick ones. We had and this is just recently, like within the last month, we had one lady who or two actually, that like their babies were not flipping, and the OB told this one that there's less than a 1% chance that your baby flips and goes head down, and like she literally got that baby to flip head down, which is awesome. And then we had another one, a little guy who is like kind of in like a failure to thrive type situation, like not gaining weight, and that's always really concerning because that's abnormal. And he got his first adjustment a week ago, and they came in today. He gained 9 ounces from his last adjustment to this week, and that's the only thing they did differently was he got adjusted, right?
Wow.
And like just mind blowing stuff. And then lastly, and we're still kind of waiting for this one to unfold too, but we have another baby who's like 19 months old. And she has a genetic condition that only 39 other people in the world have, that we know, that the scientific community knows about. 39, right?
Wow.
And they were told she would never, sit up. Anyway, so she sat up for 2 minutes the other day on her own, unassisted, with this condition. Yeah. So, I mean, so when you asked me earlier, like, what do I love? It's like, well, I love those stories. Even though those specific ones I didn't have a direct hand in, right? It's like, I love those stories, and hearing about that. So no amount of money could ever like replace like the joy that a parent comes in and they're like, he gained 9 ounces, and like all that stress and worry they were carrying, right, is now like melting away, right? And they can like, anyway, so I could go on and on about that.
No, that's awesome.
I'm just thinking those should have been our stories for our positivity stuff that we've been doing.
Right.
Those are awesome.
We're gonna bring you in on the next episode. If I can figure out how to do it, I'll have to.
That's right. That's right.
Oh my
And
gosh, that's so
then
awesome.
we have another one who recently, more recently, he's been for a couple of years now, but Dr. Joe Criscola, and he had actually had his own practice up in Wake Forest for a long time, and just same philosophy. And and he was actually my chiropractor before Dr. Vivian came around, so I knew him. He's a great adjuster and like just a great communicator, and really has a lot of expertise in like kind of more the sports world, if you will. I mean, he's great at everything, but he's just like really passionate about that too. He's like, he's probably going to kill me if he watches this because I'm going to say like wrong, but he was like in the like, what is it? It's not Spartan races. Yeah. But so he got like third, like in the country in his age group, or fourth or something like that. So he is insane with all that stuff. So yeah, but he's awesome because he just knows a lot about, you know, movement, and he's also you know, I think they call it a yogi, like he's like a yoga, you know, specialist too. So just like kind of a nice blend he's a movement specialist too. He's like great at not only adjusting people and the chiropractic piece, but he really is like helpful in people like just move better. Yeah.
Now I can't like believe Dr. V and Dr. Joe have been like awesome assets to the office. You brought in like awesome people for that. So it's pretty cool to see how they kind of gelled.
Yeah, and having been adjusted by all of you, y'all all have your own styles. They're all phenomenal, but they are very, very different from each other. It's kind of the personalities. That's really cool.
All right, we got some more questions. I want to get through like some more good stuff because this is already getting toward the longer part of it.
Yeah, sure.
Based on your other, I mean, you're just telling us some great stories, but do you have like one of the best, or I don't know, the biggest transformation that you've seen in a patient, like in your office? Like what's one of the stories you like to tell, whether it's coming off medications or losing weight or just all around health and life?
Man, I mean, there's so, I mean, I don't even mean to brag, but there are really so many. Honestly, those three that I just listed off, like I love, but I will say actually one that was pretty recently too was a nurse who was referred to me and from Wilson, North Carolina. So she was like driving from a long ways away, and and a lot of stuff going on, lots of medications. She'd been on an antidepressant for decades, overweight. You know, nurses, God bless them, like they have the hardest job in the world. You know, and not just right now, but it's in general. I mean, they just have brutal jobs, brutal hours, brutal physical and emotional stress, you know, on their bodies. So, and she had told me all that, like, this is why my health sucks right now, is because I put people first for like 40 years. And, you know, so I put together like an insanely hardcore plan because she was telling me how she wanted to play with her grandkids and she like couldn't do anything. And so I put this insanely, you know, complex and high level plan, and to her credit, she followed it like to a T. And within 6 months, she lost like 70 pounds, got off her antidepressant completely that she had been on for literally 20 plus years. Her fibromyalgia went from like a 8 or 9 out of 10 pain on a regular basis down to like a 1 or 2 or 3 at the most. Plantar fasciitis gone. I'm trying to think she had a handful of other conditions that are. And, you know, again, I look at like, oh, that's great. But what really makes me excited is knowing that like, she's now playing with her grandkids, right? And like being able to enjoy that. And like all the transformation led to the result. And the result was not just her feeling better and, you know, being skinnier, but it's like now she's like enjoying retirement and living her life with her grandkids.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So cool.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to butt in one more time. So we are still going through, you know, our stay at home has been lifted, but we're still going through the COVID pandemic right now. What do you have to offer, you know, anybody looking to
get started with chiropractic? I
mean, not necessarily that, but do you have other things to offer somebody looking to align their health to where they can be preventative in a way?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, we are an essential business. So, you know, according to we can be open. So we have, thank God, been able to be open and you know, do pretty much all of our normal stuff. But I have been doing it, and I got another one coming up on Sunday. I don't know when this is exactly going to air or whatever, but I workshops online all the time now, and probably that's going to be more frequently, is just who knows when everything gathering wise is going to be able to be allowed to be back to its normal. Because when we do seminars, they're big, obviously, but so we're doing a lot more like online seminars. So if you go on Facebook and search Greg Barnes, whatever, all the letters behind my name, you'll find me.
We'll put all that.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So I mean, and I do them right off of Facebook, right? So you can, connect with that for free. But yeah, and so Facebook is a great way. I do a lot of stuff on Facebook. That's probably where I post the most stuff. That's just where most of my audience is on there. So I'm always posting health articles and thoughts to get you thinking. You know, part of my job is not to tell you what to think about your health, but hopefully just to get you to think about it and ask the right questions. And that usually will lead you to where you should end up being. So yeah.
Yeah, your Facebook group is awesome. We get a lot of value and information out of that part. So it keeps us thinking, like you just said.
Well, and I think something that's extremely valuable is a lot of the knowledge that you have, you offer for free. Like you said, you use Facebook as one of the avenues, but they don't necessarily have to be a patient in order to kind of pick your brain necessarily, which is awesome.
For sure.
So you mentioned your wife earlier. We kind of talked about that, but you're both business owners. So before we jump into kind of like the end wrap up, how has that kind of played out with both of you guys having businesses you're running? Has it worked well? Do you have any advice for spouses that are trying to do both their own thing?
Well, so in the early days, it was just her and I, literally the only employees. So like we would be at work all day long together. We only had one car, right? So we would drive to and from work together. All we talked about was work, right? Like we had no separation of like boundary at all. Like literally, like there was just like, it was just work. It was work and encompass every one of our lives. And, you know, to some degree in the beginning, like it kind of that was out of necessity. But once we got to a point where we could like breathe, it's like we had to do a lot better. And I'm not great at this at all. And so she's like good at like telling me to shut up about it. Like, I don't want to hear this, you know, right now, even if it's something good. Like sometimes like I'll come like, hey, this is amazing. And not like she would poo-poo the testimonials or whatever, but it's like a good business day. She's like, meh, you know, like just be quiet. Like, let's talk about something else. So she's like way better at like separating that than me. And then when she was kind of more stay-at-home mom, and you know, then that was honestly easier to some degree. Although I think to us, one thing that, you know, she also missed it though, right? So it's like, you know, she missed being a part of it, and she missed like being out of the loop, and she, you know, didn't like only me bringing it home, but she was doing her most important job, which is just, you know, taking care of our kids. So now like we have these, you know, we still have our business, and then she's starting her business relatively recently, and they're very, you know, they're very parallel, you know. She's a doula, and, you know, we take care of, you know, pregnant moms, like, so they really run in tandem. They're separate, but they run in tandem. And so, you know, so honestly, like, I don't know the answer to that yet, because you can maybe ask her when you interview her, but there's a little bit of now she's like kind of running that business on her own. And so, you know, she's kind of in those early stages of like figuring certain things out. And I'm trying to figure out like, how much do I step in here? Do I, you know, not that I'm an expert at everything, but like, am I supposed to give her advice? Am I supposed to wait for her to ask for advice? Am I, you know, so how do y'all
plan your progress? How do you plan your schedules out like day by day? Because I mean, you work a lot, you got long hours, and her hours are not necessarily set in stone, depending on when that'll happen too.
For sure. And I'm not great at this either. I mean, as I you know, we actually were just talking about this. It's just, unfortunately, it's just, and I don't know if it's the guy in me, but I can so easily just default to like work first and like then figure out how to fit my family in for that, which is not who I want to be. Obviously, like I want it to be the other way around. But you know, structure creates freedom, right? So like my schedule is really broken down by like to the 15-minute increments, like hardcore. And so, you know, I do have family time and all that stuff kind of carved out right in there. And admittedly, I don't always nail that the way that I'm supposed to, but the intention is there for sure. And I think you have to start with at least that, as like having some level of like schedule. Like, you know, we schedule Friday afternoon as date time. So, I mean, unless the sky is falling, like and sometimes the date times are like, we're just running errands and it's like not sexy and fun at all, but like, hey, at least we're doing it. So schedule is really critical for that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, do you want to do our final thoughts? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So let's jump into those. I'll start that off right now. Do you have any time? Are you reading any books? Do you watch any Netflix? Do you have anything?
I've been studying the economy a lot, actually. Just really curious about where all this is going, to be honest. Like Great Depression, recession, we all going to be living in a van down by the river? I don't know. It could go many ways right now. So I've been doing a lot of that.
No, we're still buying an island. That's where we're going.
Yeah. So I will say that just with everything going on has really gotten me really interested in how like economics work. And so I'm kind of really digging into some cool stuff with that. I'm still doing functional medicine training like weekly. I'm reading a book right now actually called Never Lose a Customer Again by Joey Coleman. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I'm only like part of into it, and it is gold. And you know, for retention really, right? And so it's like not one thing just to get a customer, but his whole point is like it's keep people, because that's the better way of doing business. So that's a great book for anybody in business, is that Never Lose it. And I'm only a third of the way, and I'm like I got my value out of it.
Cool. That's awesome. I don't even think we said our final 5 questions. That was number 1. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I know. So favorite local restaurant, hangout spot, maybe even another small business that you would recommend?
Yeah. We love Sola. We love Fount. Fount is also, it's out in Morrisville. It's a coffee shop, but they also have food too. So that's a common place we'll go and hang out, you know, maybe do a little work side by side there. So Fount is a great restaurant. Juice Keys, Raleigh. I mean, we really only go to like the same 4 places. So it's like Fount, Sola, Raleigh, or Juice Keys, and then Fount, right? Or would I say that? And then Chipotle every now and then too. So
right. I know. I want to work on getting Sola on here and Juice Keys too sometimes.
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. All right. So this is my question.
He just named coffee shop.
And he just named coffee shop, so it's perfect. But one thing we always ask is, how do you take your coffee? And if you don't drink coffee, we need to know why.
I probably drink more coffee than 99.9% of people on the planet. So how do I take my coffee? As much and as often as possible is probably the answer. But no, I'm a cream guy. I'm a cream guy. Yeah.
All right.
Coffee with cream.
We kind of hit on this one, but what's the greatest piece of advice for someone starting their own business that you have?
Yeah. So that, but I'll add to this, I mean, passion. Like if you're not passionate about it, just don't even start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you'll get through anything if you're passionate about it. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Cool. Last question is, do you have any businesses that you want to shout out, or anybody that could be on a list for us to interview also?
Yeah, actually, well, you mentioned them. I mean, Juice Keys, especially, I know them well. They have a great mission that is aligned with my mission. So I'll say that just out of commonality for that. And I have a sneaking suspicion that like probably all the ones I would also name, you guys probably already have on your list, you know, as well. But, you know, I because I know the whole family now, the whole Majestic, you know, GrassMasters, that whole clan is great, just what their family's done and doing, you know, business for a long time with a lot of integrity, you know, too. And they're in multiple spaces. So they've obviously know what they're doing for building businesses.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Well,
and Hunter Rowe, 2 of Hunter Rowe's finest real estate agents in the Triangle. No, I mean, oh, can I say one more thing? Because I know you're
go for it.
But when you're talking about systems, you know, I know Jason, when you started and you were sharing some of the training process that you were going through, I was just really impressed. Like for some, I don't know why in my mind I ever would have thought that like why it'd be important for somebody in your industry, but maybe people think the same way about chiropractic. Like, why would a chiropractor need to like have like these systems? Like, don't they anyways? And so in a person who appreciates systems and knowing, I believe like that's a large reason why my clients are satisfied, like why they're happy. That's probably the same reason. I mean, it probably goes the same way, like why I know you guys take great care of people is because of the same reason, because it really helps things.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I appreciate that. It's a saturated field, but you have to be able to take care of the customers, and there's systems and processes for sure in every field, and that's one of them that we rely on heavily. But man, this has been an awesome interview. We really appreciate you coming on. I got a couple of final thoughts that we had just to wrap up some of the stuff that we touched on, and some of the stuff I had was, you know, one of the things that you really harped on was to seek help when you're starting out, for sure. Like, just ask that question and get going. We touched on systems and processes a lot. That's something people can go back and listen to or get a book on. community, passionate, and just love the people that you serve. And, you know,
Yeah.
things kind of come natural after that. I think that goes for almost any industry, but especially one like you, when you're literally putting your hands on those people, for sure.
Yeah. Amen.
And what was that?
No, I said amen.
No.
Yeah.
And one thing when it comes to, you know, starting a business, especially when you have a wife that's in it as well, and you're both entrepreneurs, you know, structure creates freedom. That was a great phrase that you had, and that's something for us for sure to remember on that part.
Absolutely. And I know with this interview, this is the tip of the iceberg. We kind of jokingly said earlier that we could talk to you for hours just with all the knowledge that you have and the passion for your field. So we really appreciate your time. And for those watching, you definitely need to look up Dr. Greg Barnes and all of his ABCs at the end of his name to find all that information that's out there, because you will not be sorry that you did.
Yeah, I can't wait to mastermind with you soon again. Again, this was Dr. Greg Barnes with Greenway Health Center, Dr. Chiropractor, you know, entrepreneur, innovator, educator, and friend, for sure. So thanks again for coming on.
You bet.